Good evening. My name is Omar Farmer, and on behalf of the Alameda County Veterans Affairs Commission, welcome to our first ever Veteran Suicide Prevention Forum. I'm the commission's chairperson, I'm a Navy veteran, and I'm also an Operation Iraqi and Enduring Freedom era veteran. And one of our goals as a commission is to identify and promote the needs of veterans and their families. And what we found is that veteran suicide is a topic of paramount importance to our community, because nationwide, 18 veterans die by suicide per day. Veterans are also 3 times more likely to die by suicide than their non-veteran peers. And our hope for this is that by doing this forum for veterans who have lost hope, that we're able to provide them with more hope for the future, as well as for supporters of the veteran community. In September is also National Suicide Prevention Month. So we just felt that this is the most appropriate time to do something like this. And I also want to point out one of our partners, Alfredo Rodriguez, sitting right there in the front from American Legion Post 68. And I just want to thank you, Alfredo, for your thoughtfulness and hospitality and letting us use this space. It's much appreciated. Please give Alfredo a round of applause. And his American Legion Post is also having their monthly meeting tonight at 7 p.m. So if you want to check them out, and they also have a suicide prevention campaign American Legion does overall called the Be the One campaign, and Alfredo's going to talk a little bit about that later. So if you want to check out their chapter as well as learn more about their campaign, you can do that tonight at 7 p.m. They meet in one of the side rooms over here down the corridor. All right, and then just to discuss some of the different calls to action that we have, I just want to talk about a few before I introduce our amazing panelists. Just some things that you can do to help out for this cause. One of them is to help promote the Alameda County Veterans Affairs Commission's Stand Down event that's going to be held in Oakland at St. Vincent de Paul on September 13th and 14th from 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. both days. For the uninitiated, the Stand Down is a term for a resource fair for homeless veterans. And according to statistics from the VA, homeless veterans are at high risk to die by suicide. Another thing you can do, Swords to Plowshares has an amazing program called Justice Involved Mentor Program. And Justice Involved veterans are also at high risk to die by suicide. You can sign up to be a mentor. If you want to learn more about that, get with myself after this event and we can talk about that. The commission also received approval for a standalone veteran service office, also known as a VSO, and better access to veteran benefits that you can get through your local VSO can help prevent some veterans from going on a downward spiral in the first place. What you can do to help support move that process forward is to sign our online petition. Talk with me after this event, I'll get you information how to do that. Further, the Palo Alto VA has a mobile medical outreach event that are held here in this building. The next one is going to be on September 12th from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And I'm going to let Lachelle Birch, who's up here as one of the panelists, speak more about that. But you can help them promote their event. Share the flyer. Last but not least, check in on your buddies. A little bit of outreach can go a long way. Call them, invite them to dinner if you can. Too often we hear about people dying by suicide and the people around them say, hey, we never saw it coming. And for me, I don't ever want that to be myself in that situation. All right, so I'm going to stop there, and I want to introduce our amazing panelists. Well, I'm going to let them introduce themselves. Good evening, folks. Thank you all for doing this. I really appreciate your commitment and dedication. And now I'm going to pass around the microphone, starting with Ari Davis here to your right. And if you can introduce yourself and say what you do in 1 minute or less.
Hi, my name is Ari Davis. I'm a violence prevention epidemiologist at the Alameda County Public Health Department in the Office of Violence Prevention. So I study the trends of different forms of violence across Alameda County. And yeah, tonight I'll be sharing some data on veteran suicide.
Hi everybody, it's good to see faces. My name is Lachelle Birch. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. I work within VA Palo Alto catchment area. So that means I serve communities from Monterey County up to the San Francisco County area over here in Alameda County. I work as a suicide preventionist. So what that looks like is I do community and engagement partnerships, coordinating alongside with our lovely community and the VA.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Eric Wick. I'm with Swords to Plowshares, Veterans Rights Organization. I started out in veteran service as a peer support specialist in our Safe Haven program, taking homeless veterans off the streets and getting them into stable, supportive housing. Now I'm in suicide prevention, working under the Staff Sergeant Gordon Parker Fox Suicide Prevention Grant Program. I train organizations and individuals interested in suicide awareness and prevention, lethal means reduction, and anything else suicide related that they may need help with.
I'm Ethel Gilmore. I'm part of the Palo Alto VA Livermore Community Living Center, 30 years of volunteer. I am up here to represent families of suicide victims. My husband and my daughter were both suicides, 4 years apart. So I can talk to you as the person left at the other end trying to put answers together. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's please give our panelists a round of applause. All right, and now the next thing on our agenda is Mr. Davis is going to provide a presentation on veteran suicide in Alameda County. Mr. Davis, the floor is yours.
Great, thank you. So while we're getting the slides up, just talk a little bit about why looking at these trends might be helpful, because it can help us identify areas for intervention. And so I hope it's helpful for what it looks like. Is it working? Okay, wait, one more. So, as I said earlier, I'm with the Alameda County Public Health Department and the Office of Violence Prevention, and I'm just going to be providing a brief overview of trends of suicide among veterans in the county. Next slide, please. So, some brief overview, and then I'm going to go a little bit more into the data. But over the last few years, there's been an average of 14 veterans in Alameda County who died by suicide. And as Omar said, veterans are at elevated risk for suicide compared to non-veterans. And so in the county, they're around 3 times as likely to die by suicide than the average resident. And we'll dive into this a little bit more, but veterans are more likely to use firearms in suicide, and so there's interventions that restrict access or limit access to lethal means that we can discuss as well as a potential suicide prevention strategy. Next slide, please. So here you can see over the last, since 2005, the number of Alameda County veterans who've died by suicide on this bottom line. And then you can see the overall Alameda County residents who have died by suicide. And you can see how for the Alameda County residents, There's been an increase over that time, and among Alameda County veterans, it's relatively flat. But it's also important to note that the overall veteran population in the county has decreased a little bit. So yeah, we need to take that into account. But about in the last few years, roughly 10% of all suicide deaths in the county are among veterans. Next slide, please. So here, these two pie charts show on the right, that's the breakdown of the veteran population by race and ethnicity in the county. And then on the left is the proportion of veteran suicide decedents by race and ethnicity. And so you can see, this is a way to kind of look at which demographic groups are disproportionately impacted. So you can see that the pink, which is white Alameda County veterans, are disproportionately represented. Next slide. And this is just another way of showing that. This is just the ratio, so the proportion of suicide deaths relative to the proportion of the overall population. So you can see anything that's above that blue line shows that that demographic group is disproportionately represented. So again, the white population is at elevated risk for veteran suicide. Next slide. So this is another way to look at the burden of suicide. So this is, of all deaths that occur in a year among veterans, what proportion are suicides? And so it's about 1%. So 1% of all deaths that occur are suicide. And then you can look at by race and ethnicity, and you have kind of a different picture here that shows that a larger portion of deaths among Asians is due to suicide. And then getting back at this stat that shows the disproportionality of that veteran suicide. That veterans are at much higher risk for suicide than the average Alameda County resident. And Omar talked about this a little bit in his intro, but we know that there's particularly vulnerable populations that are even at higher risk for suicide. And so when we're thinking about interventions, really working to focus resources and supports for these populations. So this is some national stats, but homeless veterans are about twice as likely to die than those who are housed, veterans who are housed. And then those who are formerly incarcerated within the last year are twice as likely to attempt suicide as veterans with no history, criminal history. And then of course, like compared to the general population, that puts those populations even at much higher risk. So again, those who are veterans who are experiencing homelessness and those who are formerly incarcerated are among the highest risk populations that we need to provide supports to. And then I was able to look in the county and see what percent of veterans were homeless, what percent of veterans who died by suicide were homeless at the time. And around 9% were either homeless when they died by suicide or had faced housing insecurity or homelessness in the years before they died. And then this is looking at the breakdown of the mechanism that's used and comparing veterans to residents. And the big takeaway here is that firearms account for almost 60% of the mechanisms used for the veterans use when they die by suicide. But when you look at the general population, it's a lot lower. It's about 30%. And so this is, again, can help us inform kind of the strategies we use to reduce access to lethal means when someone's in crisis. Next slide. And so just kind of building off of that, so we know that among the commonly used methods, firearms are the most lethal. So when someone attempts suicide by firearm, 9 out of 10 times they will die by firearm. And so we know other methods that are used are far less lethal, and so and that's partly because many methods can be reversed after someone has started an attempt. And so kind of and often we know that suicide that crisis can be very kind of impulsive and short-lived. So if we can kind of intervene and put time and space between someone who's at risk and a lethal method like firearms, we can save lives. And there's a lot of research showing this in jurisdictions all over the country, and then also in other countries as well. And then just briefly, and others I'm sure can speak much more to this, but just some brief interventions around things that we can do is making sure that our firearms and ammunition are locked, and being alert when friends or loved ones might be at risk, and temporarily keeping guns away from them or locking the guns up and holding onto the key when they're at risk. And then, working to develop plans to, when someone's in crisis, to temporarily transfer a firearm outside of that home can be a big way to reduce the risk for suicide. And then for more serious, or for when these kind of interventions don't seem to be working, there are some legal tools you can use. One is a gun violence restraining order, which I know folks in the back from Moms Demand have a nice poster there promoting it. But what they do is that you can file this order with the court if they deem that this person is at high risk for self-harm or harm to others. They can temporarily remove the firearm from that individual, and then there's a hearing, and if it's determined that that person continues to be at risk, then that firearm is removed for a year. So that's another, I guess kind of the last option that can be pursued, and you can work with local law enforcement to do that. So that's all the slides that I have, and I realize it's a lot of data and a lot of research, and I realize I come to this space just as that's the area that I know, but I also realize that everyone here probably has unique experiences and insights and expertise to share. So, but I hope this helps shed some light on kind of the scope of the problem from like a population level to help inform our discussion and interventions. Thank you.
Please give Mr. Davis a round of applause. Thank you, Mr. Davis. That was amazing. Let's give a round of applause again.
The ones with the white tape.
Let's please give Mr. Davis a round of applause again. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Great. I don't know why the lights weren't working. Can you troubleshoot the lights, please, Alfredo? I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I did do the ones with the white tape. I thought I did. All right. No, that was amazing, and we also want to take a little bit of time for some questions and answers based off that presentation. So if you do have any questions or comments, if you can come towards the stage or stand where you are, ask your question, and either Mr. Davis or one of our panelists will answer that question for you. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Sir, please join us at the front.
I'll address all of you.
You want the mic?
I'll talk loud enough. Everybody hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I'm out of the member of the post over at 237. Michelle was over there Saturday. She got my attention about this thing. And I run Guns Unlimited in Dublin, California. And for 47 years, I've been a federal dealer. So I've trained a lot of the Marines, a lot of people that are going into the military, not coming out. One thing that I've noticed is that locking up the guns and everything, you know, there's already laws federally, state, everything about that. We all know about that. And if they're not, they sign affidavits on that to begin with, when they buy a gun and everything. But what's kind of got me to the point of trying to figure out, you know, what is the problem here besides the gun? We always jump to the gun 99% of the time because that's the tool. But the VA, an example, and it could be off the chart a little, Yountville. When that guy was, he was incarcerated, or basically he was in the home being treated, they knew that he was not all in the same box there. They knew the bolts weren't. They rejected him, kicked him out of that facility. Between 10 days, he went and bought a gun, 2 guns, a shotgun and a rifle, to commit the crime that he did when he went in there and killed the 3 individuals that worked there. My only question is did the VA, and this would be a question, did they report him because he got kicked out because of a knife and he threatened people? Did they report him to the local authorities? You'll find that mass shootings, most of the time, the family knows about these, and they do nothing about it. And the doctors and the people treating them do the same thing, and they don't report them. And then what do we have when it shows up? The big mess. So I asked that question, how many people at the VA are being reported when they check in? And you can answer this, Michelle. How many are being reported to the local authorities to get them locked? Because we have things in California in place, the DOJ, that will restrict you. There's a whole list. You can't, if you've been threatened somebody or you're on mental health, PTSD, you can have your guns removed. And that doesn't mean a family member. So that's the question I have to ask you, and then I'll get out of your way.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I can start.
Thank you, sir.
I feel like this.
So I think,
This is something that, I think the mic went.
oh, okay.
So there's so many different ways that I can answer that question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
I'm just gonna scream. So there's so many different ways to answer that question, and so. I like that, right?
A musical interlude.
All right. So first I wanted to kind of talk about Yountville as a very specific home situation for veterans. And Yountville is a Cal-Vet ran. So to tell you the truth, I'm just going to be very honest, I don't really fully understand the relationship between the VA and then also when it comes to Cal-Vet. I think this is a dialogue that we need to have as people in general and try to figure out who in that person's life could have intervened, who knew about it, and what more could have been done. So that's pretty much where we are at with suicide prevention work. Suicide prevention work takes community, it takes partnerships. So what I could say is we can learn from that scenario in that case and see what is it that could have been improved. I'm not too familiar about what happened. I'm not too familiar about VA's role in that person's life. I'm not too familiar about the relationship that Yountville has with the VA, but that's been an interest of mine. So as long as I've been in my position as a community engagement and partnership coordinator, I began having dialogues with Cal-Vet and try to create a relationship. As everybody who has served understands, that the DOD and the VA in itself, we have to do better when it comes to looking into transitions for our service members, from service members becoming a veteran. That is a really important topic that you brought up, and I wish that I had like solid answers for you, but I do know we need to do better. As far as the police department talking with the VA talking with Cal-Vet, there's too many silos. And so we have to find out the root of these issues, which we're barely cracking, and we gotta figure out how do we mend relationships, how do we create partnerships. I probably didn't answer your question very well.
No, you answered it.
Okay, because I know there's so many different pieces of like what you just said, that, that's a story. For me, it's really important to hear these stories, to know what happened and what can we do better so we can save lives.
Well,
You want to add on?
What concerns me about what you're saying here, and I'm going to interrupt just a second because I'm not going to walk back up and do it. I think you can hear me, right?
Yeah.
Is that we spend so much time telling people to do this, do that. We have all these laws in effect in the state of California, and then we have a situation that happens like that, and then we had one nationwide that happened this morning.
Yeah.
I attend a lot of Secret Service prevention things on school shootings and stuff like this, and we find out that it's not just the vets, it's the kids and all the stuff with firearms. But we have the ability as adults and physicians and doctors, all these different people in law enforcement, to dial that phone number up and call the Department of Justice or turn them in, like you were saying earlier in one of your presentations. I think we go too long. Yountville, their family members knew about this individual. Mr. Wong is his name. They knew that he was uncalled. And we didn't do anything about it. And I'm sure there's somebody else in here's got many of those to talk about. And we're not doing anything about it because it's like, I don't want to turn my family member in because, I don't really know. If you don't, you better get the gun from him somehow. And that's not put it in the gun safe that he knows the combination.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Would anyone else like to address this question? Ms. Gilmore?
I would like to, number one, say,
Can everyone hear her okay? Okay, hold on. Let me get her to the mic. Just don't sit.
first thing I'd like to say, do not blame the guns. The guns don't do it on their own. My husband did my gun. My daughter did my hanging. My husband had the forethought to go and get the key to unlock the gun safe. Go in the other room, unlock the safe with the bullets in it. Go in the other room and get the key to unlock the trigger locks. And was kind enough to leave them all laying on the kitchen counter with the keys. Went out in the backyard and did it. And I can tell you, that day he was at Palo Alto. I was not able to take him. A very dear friend, some of you might know, Pat Flanagan, took him for me. He went into the doctor's office, and the doctor told him he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, that he no longer could drive, he no longer could carry cash, he no longer could be responsible in any way to sign any kind of a document. We have antique cars. And he said, I said to the doctor, wait a minute, I don't care about driving every day, but you can't take my cars away from me. And the doctor said, I'm notifying DMV today. And my husband said, what can I do to change it? And the doctor said, not a thing. And my husband looked him square in the eyes and said, I know how to take care of it. A 30-06 will handle it fine. That very night, he came home. Ellen Corbett and Eric Swalwell were having their debate at the Castro Valley Library. He was supposed to go with me. And he said, no, he didn't feel like it. I said, all right, and I went. I came back to find him in pieces in the backyard. We saw no notes, no nothing. So as far as there being telltale signs, there was nothing. He was happy-go-lucky. In fact, 2 days before he did it, we were at a car show with our Model A. And he took a 93-year-old lady in the purple seat for a ride, because you'll forgive me for this. She she said to him, in her younger day, she did a no-no in the rumble seat. And before she passed, she wanted one more time, but she didn't want no man back there with her because she wasn't doing no no-nos. She just wanted to ride in the rumble seat. He actually lifted her up and put her in the rumble seat of the Model A. So there was no time for me or my kids to know. Now with my daughter, Alameda County came out and claimed his body. They did a terrible job of cleaning my backyard up. He did it at night. So come daybreak, my daughter and I and my granddaughter went out in the back to see what we needed to take care of. And there were bits and pieces of him all over the backyard. I called the sheriff's department and said, send out a team to finish cleaning up this mess. And their answer to me was, your tax dollars doesn't pay for that, so you'll have to have somebody do it. My daughter and I went out and started picking it up. And as she picked up his teeth, his nose, top of his head, she looked at me and she said, Mama, please don't be mad at Daddy. He did what he did because he didn't want to be a burden. Because when the doctor told him all of this, all he could see was you had to be his caregiver. So don't be mad at him, and for whatever you do, don't take all them guns and throw them out. And I have not. But I'm here to tell you, the gun didn't do it. The person did it. So please, don't go around saying we need to ban the guns, we need to ban the guns, we need to ban the guns. They're going to find another way. My daughter used a dog leash and a chandelier in her dining room. So if there's a will, there's a way. And both cases, neither one of them had any signs of being unhappy, heartbroken. She had two beautiful girls, a wonderful husband, but she just couldn't cope with her daddy being gone. That bothered her more than anything in the world. Every time she walked into the house, she'd look at the recliner and she'd say, Daddy, where the hell are you? My problem to this very day, and we're talking 10 years and a few months, I'd still like to know why. What did I not do right? What could I have done differently? And where was I not paying attention? The VA all told me the same thing. I couldn't have done anything different. I couldn't have changed anything. The one thing that they told me to be thankful for, I wasn't there and I didn't get in his way, because he probably would have taken us both out. His mind was made up. The coroner that came to my house to pick him up was beautiful. Carried out a flag to cover him with and looked at me and said, Mrs. Gilmore, I hate to tell you how many Vietnam vets, this is how I find them. So, people, be willing to talk. Don't look at those causes and root, because they're not there. If the VA doctor would have called me, which I know HIPAA doesn't allow, and said we had this and this is what your husband said, please do something, I would have gotten the guns all out of the house before he ever got back from Palo Alto. Takes to 2 hours to get from Palo Alto to Castro Valley. Nobody called me, and when I questioned that, I got the reply, HIPAA. So, after that happened, I went to work with who was then the director of Palo Alto VA, Lisa Freeman, a wonderful gal, and we got 988 installed, because on my husband's cell phone, Palo Alto last phone number dialed. Those were the days you had to hang up and dial Thank God for 988.
Omar, you might want to unplug it and plug it in again.
Yeah, maybe. It might be but first off, let's give Ethel a round of applause. Thank you so much for sharing your personal story, your vulnerability. We really appreciate your strength and candor. Thank you so much, Ethel.
If I could save one life, I'd be thankful.
I agree with you. I'm there with you. All right, so just moving forward with the rest of the agenda, thank you again, Mr. Davis, for that presentation. That was amazing. Thank you so much. Just to see those statistics really helped, at least for me, illustrate what's happening in our county. And so the next item that we have is just a couple of questions for the panelists. This will give you the opportunity to speak again. We're a little short on time, so if we can just keep your answers to these questions to, let's say, a minute or less. If you would like to address what can the public do about this? And I'll start with, well, who would like to, would anyone like to address that question? Ethel, Lachelle, Eric, Ari, anyone? Okay, I'll start with Lachelle.
Yeah, we'll go this way.
Hopefully the mic will stay working.
Excellent question. What can the community do? There is so much that each individual in this room can do. What we do know from research, I know that we get a lot of information and stories from family members, so we still are understanding suicide. But one of the research suggests that if everyone plays a part in our community, in our neighborhood, in our workplace, suicide is preventable. Meaning that having being receptive to training, being a part of a coalition, changing some of the systematic issues that might lay in an organization. There's different ways, so many different avenues to take action. I do want to give a shout out. I did let this individual know when her head's down. We have Carla here. She's from the city of Milpitas. And they're the first city that took major steps in action. And now, today, there's a veteran support group in the city of Milpitas that has a partnership with local veterans, the city, and the VA. So that's one example. There's a lot of different examples, and I'm going to have Eric give a couple of examples and talk a little bit more about this.
Thank you, Lachelle. 36 years ago, I was a United States Marine. And in 1988, I was in boot camp, and one of the recruits in my platoon put the muzzle of his M16 under his chin and used his thumb to pull the trigger. The weird thing is to this day, I can't even remember his name. But I remember the sight of his brains on the ground in front of me and the smell of his blood, just like it was 10 minutes ago. I know intellectually there's nothing I could have done to stop it, just because humans don't move that fast. But again, to this day, every now and again I wake up in the middle of the night and I say, why weren't you paying attention? Why couldn't you have done something? It eats at you, eats at everybody. Yeah, when you get right down to it, the people closest to somebody are the last ones to see the warning signs that somebody might be experiencing suicidal ideation. The fact is, we don't want to see, because we don't want to think that, oh, my brother, my father, my mother, my sister, they've got a problem. They can't be one of those people, they're crazy. Doesn't work like that. Fact of the matter is, it exists, it persists in the population, it's not really well understood, and everybody's different. There is no simple answer. Ari brought up some great statistics. We need more guys like him working on this. Every bit of data helps. That's why my grant program exists. But the fact of the matter is, ultimately, what's going to make a difference is you, and you, and you, and you, watching your brothers and sisters' backs, listening to what they say. When they say that one little weird thing, it sticks in your mind saying, whoa, wait, what the hell was that about? It's going to be that one little thing. There's always something. But just because you don't want to hear it doesn't mean that it didn't get said. And you don't want to be the guy 36 years later wondering if I could have moved that little bit faster. Thank you.
Well, I don't know how much I have to say after following that. That was pretty powerful. But I think it's this idea that there's so much stigma attached to suicide and to mental health, right? And as I showed, I mean, the populations that are most impacted are the ones that are tend to be the least likely to talk about mental health and their feelings, right? It's older white men, right? And so how do we break down those, that stigma? And I think there's things we can do as a community to do that. And then of course on the individual level is just being more open about how you're feeling. And I think that can help, start to shift the kind of narrative around mental health and suicide and suicidal ideation, so people can seek the support that they need. And then, I understand that firearms are just the tool, but there is a lot of research showing that when we can restrict access when someone's in crisis, we can prevent a suicide. And so, it's one aspect, but if you know someone who may be seeking help or reaching out to you and saying things that just seem a little strange, check in with them and see if you can temporarily just hold on to their firearm, or just check in on them and see if they have access to a firearm, or if they've already thought through that plan, they have a plan around distancing themselves when they're kind of in crisis. So I do think it's a super complex issue, and everyone here knows so much about it. But I do think that the firearm does play an important role. And like someone said here, we have in California really strong gun laws, and some people hate those and some people think they're good, but we need to leverage those laws. We need to be using those, right? So gun violence restraining orders or red flag laws are in states across the country, and the research shows from Indiana and from Connecticut that for every 10 to 20 orders served, so firearms removed from someone who's in crisis, one life was saved. So if we're using that law when it's needed to be used, right, as a last resort, we can save lives. And we can work with law enforcement to find out and to determine when that might be a tool that we need to use. So yeah.
I just want to add on to what you're saying, Ari. I think normalizing the conversation is so important. Like being able to have those discussions and talk about gun safety, even asking if somebody's suicidal or thinking about killing themselves, having that conversation, just like when you're checking up on your buddy if they have a cold or a flu. Being vulnerable and comfortable with having those discussions. I just wanted to add on to what you were saying. It made me think about how we can have conversations, so why not talk about gun safety?
Excellent. Thank you all for your feedback. That is really outstanding commentary. And I just wanted to add that I agree with everything that's been said, and everyone has their own perspective. But I think it's also just about us talking about death in general as a society. That's kind of a stigma, so I think that people shy away from discussing that. And as far as this question is concerned about what the public can do, about what the public can do, Oh, at the bottom, okay. About what the public can do in terms of helping with this issue. I'd like to you all to learn more about the Be the One campaign that the American Legion has. And Alfredo, would you mind saying a few words about that?
Sure. Up here, down there?
Wherever you're comfortable. You can come up here and use the mic if you'd like. I can hand it to you.
I got a good voice.
All right.
To be honest, the American Legion is not just ours, but other ones as well. They're promoting this, it's called Stand Down. It's a Stand Down. It's backed by the Alameda County Veterans Affairs. We have one coming up in Oakland and Palo Alto, and that's going to be on September 13th and 14th, where veterans can come out, especially needy veterans, they can come out and learn about employment, anything legal or housing or health care. They have showers, they do laundry, they get haircuts, and just basic needs. But in terms of everything I'm hearing, I've had a lot of instances. One of the things, if you know a veteran that's struggling to get along with the world or just having troubles, introduce them to one of the American Legions or a place where the veterans meet, where they can, be around other veterans. And I find that, they can release some pressure and talk to other veterans who are on the same page. Because veterans do help veterans, and I think that one of the best things for a veteran is another veteran that's been around the block with them. I've helped a few friends. One was on, he was a retired detective, a gang expert. He's been on Netflix. He was floating all over the United States, giving seminars about gangs for maybe 1,000, 1,200 personnel at a time. And every life was great. He retires. He had all these homes. His wife leaves him out of the blue, and he just, he felt like he was useless. A lot of veterans who are very active, as soon as they lose all that, not attention, but all that activity where they're feeling like they're giving back and they're doing their due diligence to give back, and all of a sudden they're retired, all of a sudden they're not doing it, all of a sudden they're not connected. He was even going to some schools and helping the schools with programs for some of the troubled kids. He would call me and we'd talk about different things they do, like, have a basketball game against the police department, whatever, and all that was working. But when all that ended, he vanished. He was down in San Diego. And I was extremely worried. Well, our group, I have a group, we're Marines, and we were at a Marine barracks overseas, and our squad is still together. There's 14 of us, we're missing one, and we have a group chat all the time where, all this social media, Facebook, but we do a lot of phone stuff. But I was trying to find a way to find him. So I started a group chat, and we started cracking jokes and this and that. And I do a little remark about him, and kind of insulted him a little bit. And he just made a small comment. I got on the phone, called him right away, and he finally answered. I've been trying to get home for 2.5 months. He's just been floating around through New Mexico and Arizona, not knowing what to do, and he was on the borderline of suicide. And I kind of chewed him out a little bit, and I said, hey, we're brothers. You're supposed to come to me for anything. Then I put that out to our rest of our squad. I said, hey, anybody with foot surgery or ear surgery, whatever, just talk about it. So that way I go, if you guys disappear and we don't know about it, we're gonna be pissed, and whatever. We just, our language, but to me, that's one important thing. And one thing I want to point out, I think is very important is knowledge, education. And instead of just the outcomes, preventative education, like how about a piece in the local newspapers that, about suicide prevention, about who to contact and stuff. I got a little list in there that when I have people calling, since we've been doing this, once a month the Palo Alto research team comes out, and we have other resources too for claims, for suicide prevention, and we have different things that come out. And it's going to 2 every other month now. The next one, like I said, September 12th. But we're getting a lot of veterans, local veterans, that are getting back hooked up that were been kind of out of touch. They're learning about, themselves, getting stuff taken care of them. But there's a lot of stuff that veterans just don't know. Veterans are not on email, they're not on text, and some just call on the phone. They don't do none of that stuff. No, so they need personal contact. So education, spread the word. If you know some of your family, just if you have the knowledge, you have some of your family, he goes a little quiet, just give them some knowledge. Hey, there's a group over here that does this, or hey, you can call these people. But we got to prepare it. We got to have our magazines loaded with information, phone numbers, and this and that. So if someone needs help, we can offer it to them instead of saying, you know, hey Omar, hey, you know, that works too. You know, hey, what can I do? This guy's having these issues. You know, and a lot of the veterans I'm finding out that people come to me or they're aggressive, and everyone leaves them alone. They're too aggressive and they're angry and so people leave them alone, and then what do they got? No help. They're left alone. I had one recently that, you know, he was in a retirement home and he was giving everybody all kinds of trouble. He just PTSD. So instead of giving them help, they're almost ready just to toss them out in the street. But I got her some numbers, and they supposedly they moved out of there and put him in another comfortable place that he can handle. But yeah, so the stand down is very important. I'm new with this myself, but it's like once a year, sometimes once, twice a year in different cities. I know they've done it in Pleasanton. This was in Oakland. That's very important. Here, I post stuff on the board out there in the front. You know, if any of you guys have any questions, or when's the next one, or whatever I have, call me and I'll let you know what I do have. You know, like, you know, research team for your medical needs, or they've been helping people get DD-214s and everything. So, you know, to me it's the knowledge and getting the knowledge out to the people. You know, that's all I have. So.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let's go. And we also have the pleasure of having, and then we'll get to you in the back, sir, Moms Demand Action for Gun Safety, is that correct?
For gun safety in America.
Would you like the microphone, or are you okay?
No, I'm good, thank you. So my name is Cynthia Shawn, and I'm with Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America. And as this gentleman said, education really is what we're all about. We try very hard to get information out about how to reduce unintentional child gun deaths. Suicide prevention, of course, is very high on our list. And in answer to, it's really not an answer to your question about gun violence restraining orders. It's education, though, that would help. Because too many people, they see something, we say see something, if you see something, say something. That it's very hard to do, right? It's very hard to do, and plus the fact sometimes you don't even trust yourself. Like, did I really hear that, or is it really serious? So then maybe it's too late by the time you actually say something. And then when you want to say something, who do you say it to?
Who do I say it to?
Well,
I call it Department of Justice.
exactly.
I call the
But
ACVAC.
most people don't know how to institute a gun violence restraining order, right? So what you need to do is you need to call your local police department, explain the situation, and they will advise you depending on what the situation is. It's not another road that they're going to come storming in and take the gun. There's a process. It's a legal process, and sometimes it takes a while, right? So anyway, I know that it's late and kind of wrap up the program, but we invite you to come back to the table and see what we're about. We have socks for everybody, and the socks have some information. You know, there is a suicide prevention hotline that you can educate people on, right? Very simple. And also the socks have some little goodies in there for you too. So please stop by, say hello. If you want to get involved, we're happy to have you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your thoughts. And then the gentleman in the back, did you have a question or comment, sir? Please come forward.
Thank you. My name is John Reisenberger. We sort of walked in on this meeting because we were trying to get to the American Legion meeting this evening. And I heard that you were all talking about suicide. Okay, I'm a combat vet from Vietnam. 5 years ago, I was ready to. And I dealt with my PTSD for 50 years, had a successful life, but I didn't deal with it very well. I went for 30 years, didn't have any friends. And if you're looking at how to deal with suicide, prevention, veterans need a safe place. And I know you're a member of the American Legion. I'm a member of American Legion Post 1 in Paris. Veterans need to be able to talk to veterans because they understand without saying anything. The organization that saved my life and that I continue now to work for and volunteer for is an organization by the name of PGA Hope. It doesn't make any difference what the organization is. We end up giving free golf lessons, and then after the golf lessons that we give to vets along with VA approval, we have twice a month meetings with a group of veterans in a location, anywhere from 16 to 25 to 30. They meet twice a month at 32 locations around the Bay Area. What happens is the veterans get to talk to each other. They get to be with each other. Last Labor Day, Monday, I was at Mariners Point over in Foster City with 16 veterans at 5 o'clock in the afternoon. We played 9 holes of golf and then sat around and talked for an hour and a half on Labor Day because these veterans needed to talk. If you're looking at a way to get in touch with a veteran and to save his life, get him involved with other veterans. It doesn't have to be with my organization. It can be with any organization. Get him outside. Get him out of the house. Get him talking to other people. That will save his life. Yes, I'm not knocking, or I'm not saying anything against gun violence and doing everything to get away guns. Everything that's been talked about is good here. Take the next step. Get him involved with other veterans. That will save his life. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for sharing your personal story and for your vulnerability and just your wisdom. I really appreciate that. I know that's one of our goals with the Alameda County Veterans Affairs Commission and with this forum in general is to kind of try to decrease the loneliness and try to help people reconnect with the veteran community and all the different groups that we have in Alameda County. So it's really good to hear that straight from you, straight from your heart. Thank you so much. Does anyone else, we're pretty much at time, but does anyone else have any final thoughts or questions? If you do, if you can raise your hand, you're welcome to say something. Or panelists, would anyone like to say any final thoughts? Or, all right, Mr. Wick.
Thank you. It's been said before, and just playing off what the gentleman from PGA and post commander here have already said, I'm just going to answer the question that God should have when Cain put it out. Yes, you are your brother's keeper. If you're a veteran, call your buddies, your brother, your sister, grandpa, uncle. Once you serve, you're never a regular citizen again. The only people who are truly going to get you is another veteran. Just watch each other's back. You did it while you were in uniform. Nothing changed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for being here. We really appreciate you for showing up and showing out for this topic. And while this is our first time, we do intend to do it again. And we also intend to do more things in the interim in between this event and National Suicide Prevention Month. So we hope to see you again. Again, thank you for being here. Thank you again, Alfredo, for the space. And thank you for coming. Thank you, Bob, for leadership. I appreciate it. Thank you.